The KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers get 33 points from Kawhi Leonard and 24 off the bench from Norman Powell to beat Golden State by 10. The Lakers are back in action tonight at home against New Orleans. LeBron's son, Bronny, was chosen for USA Basketball's 19 and under team. The 13-man squad will play in the Nike Hoop Summit this summer. Top 5 women's college basketball teams in this week's AP rankings: South Carolina, Indiana, Stanford, Utah, and LSU. South Carolina is the nation's only undefeated team, men or women, at 25-0. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by Original Taco Pete.
Aaron at Original Taco Pete's. Come in today for our tasty seasoned black taco. We're at 3272 West Slauson, off Crenshaw, or call 323-348-4441.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The 3 people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
What we're going to do right here is go back.
KBLA Talk 1580 is turning up the frequency in Black History Month. Be on the lookout for some familiar faces as the Metro K-Line is currently wrapped in KBLA Talk 1580. Make sure you visit the KBLA Talk 1580 online store, now open for business with all kinds of fresh merch. Don't miss a single episode of The Motivator, Les Brown's month-long radio residency. You've got to be hungry. Weekdays at 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. And afternoons just got real. Real people, real talk, real issues, real solutions. Be sure to check out Ariva Martin in real time on your way home weekday afternoons from 4 to 6. Turning up the frequency all Black History Month long. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.
KBLA Talk 1580 is teaming up with LA County Justice Care and Opportunity Department, along with Supervisor Holly Mitchell, to bring you a healing space, well-being, creative expression, and connection as acts of resistance. This event will take place Sunday, February 19th from 12 to 4 p.m. at Irvin Magic Johnson Park, 905 East El Segundo Boulevard in Los Angeles. All are welcome, and it's absolutely free.
There will be mental health support, interactive art, an expungement clinic, kids programming, emotional support, animal services, writing workshops, health screenings, dance classes, and employment opportunities. Join us for healing circles, free food, and 3 DJs so you can dance all day long.
It's a healing space and so much more. Sunday, February 19th at Irvin Magic Johnson Park. For more info, visit jcod.lacounty.gov. Healing together with the LA County Justice Care and Opportunities Department, Supervisor Holly Mitchell, and KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, this is Tavis.
Tavis, this is Dr. K. We've got a lot to talk about. I'll be in town on the 28th of February. Can you clear your calendar?
Absolutely, Dr. King. Good Lord, do I have some questions for you, sir. Hi, it's Tavis.
Assalamu alaikum, my brother. This is Minister Malcolm. Now, I heard that you and Martin are getting together for a public dialogue on February 28th. You see, now I already know the date. Now, I know y'all not trying to keep me out of that conversation, are you?
No, sir. No, sir.
What happened to George Floyd shouldn't happen, not even to a dog. How long must the Negro continue to endure this foolishness at the hands of law enforcement? People can take but so much before they reach a breaking point. What do you mean, Black Lives Matter? Black lives haven't mattered in this country since Negroes stopped working for free at the end of slavery. You ought to be talking about Black Guns Matter and start your own NRA. Call it the Negro Revolutionary Amalgamation.
Don't miss this compelling historic radio event, The Return. When Tavis Smiley converses with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. Tuesday, February 28th, 9 a.m. Pacific Time, exclusively on KBLA KBLA Talk 1580.
Excuse me. Now that I have your attention, may I ask you this question? Why do you believe police brutality continues to exist in this country? Do you believe it to be a systemic problem, or should we judge police misconduct on a case-by-case basis? And what's your opinion on the best course of action to solve the problem? Well, you have come to the right place. You're listening to LA's all-new progressive talk radio station. Of the people, by the people, for the people.
Hey, I sure appreciate that.
It's KBLA Talk 1580. And we got you covered round the clock. Racism, we got you. Progressive politics, we got you. Health and wellness education, we have you covered.
We're going to have to put it back in the hands of the people.
A black-owned and operated, evidence-based alternative radio station for progressive, open-minded people like you and me.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Welcome home, LA. We're all in this together.
Let's get it on.
It's KBLA Talk 1580, broadcasting from the heart of LA's Leimert Park. We've got a lot to talk about.
We are going to have to fight. We're going to have to struggle. We're going to have to struggle relentlessly to bring about some peace.
First things first.
First things first, it's the DU General, Money B. I'ma put you up on the schedule. 6 to 9, 8 weekdays, not 2 and 7. We got a lot to talk about, so much to pedal through. Unapologetically progressive. Tune to KBLA 1580 to get the mess. We're your ancestors' favorite radio station. First black on talk radio, left side of the nation. Me and Dominique DiPrima go way back. Tyler Smiley making sure the station stays black. Discussing all the issues in our community. We're hosted black and brown and others find unity. So let's talk about it. Maybe we can improve it. Digital underground, always down with the movement. So we tune in. The first things first with the queen of Black Talk Radio, Dominique DiPrima. Go sis. First things first.
KBLA Talk 1580. Good morning and God bless. I'm Dominique DiPrima. This show is First Things First, my first thing every day, especially today. Giving thanks, giving praises, and asking for the blessings of God Almighty, asking for the blessings of the community, the ancestors, and the elders. And let's go. We have a lot to talk about as always. Hour one, we stick to the local, what's going on the left coast. Hour two, we typically open up the phone lines. Well, they're always open, but hour two, we do what I call freestyle phones, which means you can change the subject at any time. And hour three, we do a deep dive with a person or persons of interest. Today, we'll be meeting a director who is involved with the Pan-African Film Festival, which is ongoing and has some fabulous programming. Woman director doing some powerful work, Monique Matthews. We also have some special stuff going on today. As you know, we are in support. We are a co-sponsor of a healing space that is taking place Sunday with the new Department of Justice Care and Opportunities of LA County, along with County Supervisor Holly Mitchell. So we are going to be talking with Dr. Lisa Wong, who is the Director of Mental Health for the County of Los Angeles, about why a healing space is important and what is going to be going on there. Is that my phone? Doggone it. Everyone's calling me this morning, which is funny because they've been calling me since 5 a.m. I guess everyone knows I'm up. It's not a secret. I'm so happy to have with us this morning a justice advocate. She got her JD from Pepperdine School of Law and a BA from Spelman College. She currently serves as Dean of Students, Diversity, and Belonging, recently appointed to the State Bar of California's Council on Access and Fairness. dedicated to bringing diversity, equity, inclusion, and a true sense of ownership and belonging to the law. Dean Chalak Richards, welcome.
Thank you, Dominique. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm very immature. When I hear Dean, I feel like I'm in trouble. What did I do?
But I promise you're good today.
Well, I'm glad to have you in. I always love talking with legal minds, but one of the things that we frequently look at is how these higher institutions, like particularly law schools, medical schools, opportunities for Black people in particular and BIPOC people in general to enter those spaces are not always welcoming.
No, you're exactly right. And something that I think is important to know and give some context is that nationally, according to the ABA, only 4.5% of all attorneys nationwide identify as Black.
Wow, that's insane.
It is. And what's even more insane is that number hasn't changed since 2003.
Okay, so 20 years later.
20 years later, we're at the same place. And something that's even more interesting to me is that since about 2017, approximately 8% of all law students have identified as Black, but the number of actually practicing attorneys has not changed at all.
So how do you read that, or what is the data showing you about that?
What we're hearing, what we're seeing from that is that there are some barriers to people actually being licensed in the legal profession. And I would be remiss not to share what that is according here in California, where we are, because as we know, you do local, and we want to make sure that we're giving people local information. According to the State Bar of California, in 2021, 4% of all licensees, new people into the profession, identified as Black in California. So again, that's mirroring the nationwide numbers, but we would expect it to be better where there's such a larger population of Black people in the state.
Do we have a large population? I always feel like we've got a lot of people in California, but not as many Black people as we could have. But I've been seeing data recently that if you look at it compared to many other states, we actually do have a lot of Black folks here.
And that's what I'm thinking about is comparatively that, that relatively small number of Black people across the country. Generally, of course, we expect a large amount to be concentrated across the South. We think about that old nickname for D.C., Chocolate City. But I think a lot of people think, L.A., there's going to be a good number of Black people and that you would have a higher concentration, especially in a more progressive, or at least assumingly progressive state like California, than you may in other places.
I think it's funny you say assumingly, because I have that theory about California that it has this reputation as a very deep blue state, but in reality we're a diverse state, and the middle of it is not so diverse.
Yeah, and I think that's some of what you see happening in the legal profession as well, that there has been a reputation that's come out recently that lawyers are more progressive, or the legal profession is becoming more progressive. And we can talk later about some of the things the ABA, the American Bar Association, that accredits law schools nationwide, have put in place that I think might be good first steps, but I have not been uncritical, uncritical publicly about.
Yeah, well, I guess there's a reason why, you got appointed to do the work that you do, not just for Pepperdine Law School, but for the entire state and the Bar Association. And what kinds of barriers are we talking about?
So we're looking at a few things. I think the first barrier to entry that we're looking at is the cost of legal education. It is an expensive thing to do, to even apply. Oftentimes it's very expensive. The LSAT itself, the law school admissions test, although there are waivers available, that is very expensive. And so to even apply to law school can be cost prohibitive. And then attending law school is not cheap. Numbers show, at least even for my own institution, that people are graduating with between undergraduate and law school debt of close to $180,000 in debt from their education.
That's a lot of debt.
That's a lot of debt, yeah. And then the third that you're really looking at is bar admission. And so the bar exam, California's bar exam pass rate is very, very low, and we've seen that that has been a negative impact on applicants of color and especially Black applicants, and so to the bar. And so that's one of the things that I'm really happy to be looking at in my time with the State Bar as well.
Right, so you're part of the State Bar's Council on Access, right?
Yes, the Council on Access and Fairness.
So, I mean, a person can hear that. I'm imagining I'm a right-wing radio programmer, and I'm going to think, well, Black people are just dumb, so they can't pass the bar.
Yeah, and so that's what people would think. I reject that proposition, even from the basics. We know that Black people are not inherently less intelligent than anyone else, and if we reject that, then we have to believe that the system that's in place has been designed to keep Black people out of it. And that's the part that I come from. We're not less intelligent. I have scores and scores of historical and modern day figures that would tell you that. We know that to be true. And if we reject that, then we know that what is happening here is the system itself is doing what it was designed to do, which is to keep us out.
We'll talk about how we get us in. And, of course, I'm interested in your take on some things that are going on in the state. We'll look at all that when we come forward. Dean Chalak Richards joins us on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners. And best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. I was able to speak with Kate Luzio, former banking executive and now owner of Luminary, who partnered with Chase for this tour. She makes it her business to build community for business owners.
Yes, so I was a banker for 20 years before I decided to become an entrepreneur. 7 of those years were actually at JP Morgan Chase. One of the biggest things that I had going into my entrepreneurial journey was a big background in banking.
So what advice are you giving business owners looking for financial backing today?
So Chase brings in so much knowledge and the opportunity to understand what financial tools are out there for business owners to build, grow, and scale their business. A lot of business owners will say, well, I need to get a loan immediately. Well, you wouldn't just lend money to your friend if you didn't know why they needed it. I tell every business owner, you need a business plan, you need financial projections, you need a banker. Because you have to start building a relationship with a banker so that they get comfortable with how you're going to build that business and so that they can eventually support you in different ways.
Makes sense. So visit the Chase Community Center on Crenshaw and Vernon. Meet a banker today. Tell them about your business. I'm Maisha Cairo in the community for KBLA with JP Morgan Chase.
California is a great place to live and work, but those aren't easy things to do for students also going to college. That's why the state created the Californians for All College Corps, a way for students to build skills and help others while earning up to $10,000 for school. Commit to serve your community and we'll help you pay for college. Spots will fill up fast, so learn more and apply today at www.cacollegecorps.com. That's www.cacollegecorps.com. California is a great place to live and work, but those aren't easy things to do for students also going to college. That's why the state created the Californians for All College Corps, a way for students to build skills and help others while earning up to $10,000 for school. Commit to serve your community and we'll help you pay for college. Spots will fill up fast, so learn more and apply today at www.cacollegecorps.com. That's www.cacollegecorps.com.
The all-new Nissan Ariya is a fully loaded EV. It's brimming with style and power.
Up to 389 horses of it.
Innovation and intelligence.
E-Force all-wheel drive.
It'll pin you to your seat.
Your very plush seat.
The all-new, all-electric Nissan Ariya. Nissan Ariya with E-Force expected availability early 2023. E-Force cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. E-Force and 389 horsepower available on Platinum Plus. Nissan calculation using 1-foot rollout testing with long-range battery and E-Force only in sport mode with E-Step off. These results are for comparison only and should not be attempted on public roads. Drive responsibly. See nissanusa.com for details.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
Right now, looking at the left coast, we are talking with Chalak Richards. She's the Dean of Students, Diversity, and Belonging at the Pepperdine Caruso School of Law. She's a justice advocate. And we're talking about, well, we always look at all things local, but certainly in any community, access to lawyers, culturally competent attorneys, and having people from our communities in the legal discussions. I mean, we look at the Supreme Court, and many of us are celebrating the ascension of Ketanji Brown Jackson as a justice, even though she's in the minority and she often, her impact might not be seen in a macro way. But you think about just the idea of having someone who maybe has shared experiences or understanding at the table, and what a difference that makes.
It absolutely does. I say to my students all the time, representation isn't everything. We can know that, we can think of people across all professions, but especially in the legal profession, that we were very excited to see reach a position and then can be disappointed in the outcomes that they give us. But representation is important, and that's where, when we think about even the statistics we were discussing or the ascension of Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, the importance of seeing someone there reminds us that it's possible, and not only that it's possible, but that it should be happening.
Right, and then even if you hear her arguments or read her arguments, you can see that there's a perspective that was missing until a few months ago.
And that's what's important about diversity, inclusion, equity, belonging, all of those words that we use. Really what we're coming down to is ensuring that everyone's perspective is at the table so that the decisions that are being made are reflective of the entire populace.
Right, they're fair for the entire populace.
Exactly.
With your job, being about diversity and belonging, you got to have at least one eye on what's happening in Florida, where they're actually looking at banning diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives as being problematic. That's a step further than banning affirmative action, because now you're not just saying we're not going to do things. You're not only saying we don't want to do things to make up for past harms or past exclusion. We're saying we do not want to include you now.
Exactly. And that's where we find that many activists and even legal scholars and people across the country who we may not originally think of as being progressive or even pro DEI measures are saying, wait, this is too much, because what they're doing, I should say, is removing the ability to just learn and to critically think and to engage and to have nuance and depth to our educational experience, which is what brings depth to our legal environment.
So we're talking about barriers and some of the solutions, and you're working on this from two different angles, Ms. Richards. You've got your work within Pepperdine, the Caruso School of Law, and you're also working with the State Bar. So talk to me about some of the ways that we take these barriers down.
Yeah, so in the law school environment, some of what we think about is the pipeline, so that very first place of how are we getting people into law school. A lot of law schools, ours included, have taken to doing initiatives with HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. We recognize that Black people do not just attend these institutions, but I would be remiss as a graduate of an HBCU myself if I didn't speak to the historical nature of these institutions and the importance of the institutions in educating Black people in the country, especially at a time where sadly we may be seeing some regression in what's available to Black people in terms of that education. And so we partner with HBCUs. For ourselves at the School of Law, I'm very, very proud of an initiative that I brought in where we've partnered with certain schools to provide what we call a 3+3 program, where they can get their undergraduate and their law degree in 6 years instead of 7. And the point of that is that it can reduce the debt that someone's taking on. We talked about some of those numbers a little bit before.
Yeah.
And so reducing that debt, and towards reducing that debt, because I believe, Pepperdine is a faith-affiliated school, and I like to say that where your treasure is, your heart is. And so if we're not putting our money where our mouth is, then it doesn't matter. And so one of the things that we've done is given a guaranteed 50% tuition scholarship to any student who graduated from an HBCU who attends the law school. We also have 5 full tuition scholarships for what we call our HBCU scholars, people who graduate from the law schools who have leadership capabilities, who believe in serving their community, particularly the Black community, and who want to make sure that in however they practice law, that they're communicating those ideals going forward. And so we have those two things, and any of those graduates who are eligible for the scholarship and come through the 3+3 still get those scholarships as well. So we're really taking aim at reducing debt and increasing that pipeline.
So if they graduate from an HBCU, any HBCU, and they manage to get into Pepperdine Caruso School of Law, then they'll automatically get that 50% reduction?
They automatically get that 50% scholarship, and they're automatically considered for the full tuition scholarships. And the deciders of that scholarship are myself, my assistant director for diversity, and our dean of admissions.
And so that's one of the things, probably I would imagine a pretty big thing, by the way, is the financial obstacles.
Absolutely. And again, taking aim at that, we know that law school is expensive and we want to reduce that expense. I should also mention that I think it's very important what currently practicing lawyers and bar associations, I have to mention Langston, where one of our students received a scholarship from them at their gala this past weekend. So I have to give them that shout out, and her as well. And, you know, the CABA, the California Association of Black Attorneys, right? These are all doing things that we need to be happening. The National Black Law Students Association as well, very engaged in reducing the financial burden, and also, just as important, I think, creating that sense of belonging, that our students know that they're not the only Black people in law school, because they can feel like that sometimes. They're not the only Black people. They're not the only ones going through their things, and creating a space for them where they know that they're supported to succeed.
So in your work with the State Bar of California, the Council on Fairness, on Access and Fairness, what are some of the things that they are looking at? Because, I mean, I heard what you're saying, and I do reject the idea that we're just dumb. I do. But I know that that's kind of, a lot of those programs, the barriers are sort of, I think, downplayed because it's blame us, just blame the Black people is the strategy.
It really is. And one of the things I'm proud of with being on COAF, the Council on Access and Fairness, is that we don't just say, well, they're wrong and how do we fix them, right? But it's, no, maybe this is wrong and how do we fix this? And so this past year, one of the subcommittees I was on there went through the bar exam, and with some experts, we went through the past 10 years of the exams and evaluated every single question for bias. Gender bias, racial bias, nationality, English as a second language, every single question to determine, do we have bias here? How could we eradicate that? And they're putting in place training for the bar exam writers so that people who write the questions for going forward are also being trained in reducing their bias, not just your more general implicit bias training that people think about, but things very specific to what that shows up like in the legal profession, in the questions that we're asking, and how those things are being structured. Also taking a look at the communities in which the testing centers are located, and the ways that we see even bar fees being structured, and how that may be a barrier to someone who doesn't even realize, I paid for law school, oh my goodness, now I have to pay another $1,000 just to be licensed into the profession.
Well, we have news, traffic, and sports right here, so we'll continue this conversation after news, traffic, and sports. But I'm interested, you know, in examining all of those questions, like what kind of thing are we talking about? You know, how that shows up, and how a small change could be made to fix something like that. I'm also just interested in, you know, your thoughts about why we need more Black attorneys, why we are good at this job, because I, for whatever reason, am friends with a whole bunch of attorneys. Most of them are African American, not all of them. And, you know, I think they contribute so much, but maybe we need to talk a little bit more about that. You're listening to KBLA. This is Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The 19-year-old gunman who shot 10 people at a Buffalo, New York supermarket last year will be given a life sentence today. Peyton Gendron, the self-professed white supremacist, recently pleaded guilty to the racially motivated attack against Black shoppers. Over a dozen people are expected to deliver victim impact statements. This could be a concern for many. Millions of Americans from East Texas to the Midwest are bracing for severe weather. Forecasters are warning of powerful thunderstorms, possible snow, and a quick drop in temperatures from Ohio to the Gulf Coast starting late today. They warn nighttime thunderstorms could spawn tornadoes, hail, and flooding downpours, and that could last into Thursday night. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle, and my company is Blindster.com. I started Blindster in 2010 to provide custom blinds, shades, and shutters at affordable prices. Our blinds are easy to install and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive professional. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Of the 5 NFL teams looking for a head coach in the offseason, only one hired an African-American. The Houston Texans hired D'Amico Ryans. The last opening will be filled today when the Arizona Cardinals hire Philadelphia Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon. This means the NFL made virtually no progress in addressing the lack of black head coaches. Only 3 of the NFL's 32 teams will have a black head coach on the sidelines next season. There is some progress in other areas. 8 teams have a black general manager, 5 have a black president. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by Original Taco Pete.
Aaron from Original Taco Pete's here, inviting you to our newest location at 3272 West Slauson off Crenshaw for Taco Tuesday, only $175. Call 323-348-4441 to order.
The Millionaires Roundtable with Lynn Richardson is creating millionaires one family, one day, $1, one dime at a time. KBLA Talk 1580 will be celebrating Black History Month Wealth with Lynn Richardson live on Wednesday, February 22nd at the Chase Community Center on Crenshaw and Vernon in Leimert Park. Come check out the space. This location has been a bank branch for over 44 years and is now a community center. It provides resources and education to help the community with money goals, home ownership, and entrepreneurship. You and a guest can win lunch with Lynn Richardson February 22nd. Go to KBLA1580.com or the KBLA 1580 mobile app today and register. See you there.
Hi, I'm Ariva Martin, and I'm the host of the new drive time show, Ariva Martin in Real Time, on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm also a mother and a child advocate, and when my son Marty was diagnosed with autism, I was devastated. I knew I had to do something. So I started the Special Needs Network, and for over 15 years, we have been helping families with children with autism. Now, through a new program called CORE, we can help you. We can help you take your career to the next level by training you to become an early childhood interventionist, working with children ages 0 to 3. The CORE program will pay you $25 an hour while you are in training, pay off $10,000 of your student loan debt, and help you find a good paying job. Call 323-291-7100 or visit snnla.org to learn how you can become a CORE fellow and take your career to the next level. Don't hesitate. Apply today.
For adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy, now there's Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months, and Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Nothing and me go hand in hand. Nothing on my skin, that's my new plan. Nothing is every day.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, you could achieve 90% clearer skin. Ask your doctor about the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis and visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
You know, one of the blessings of this particular job, and I hope this is a blessing for you, just being part of our KBLA delegation in this particular radio station is all of the amazing people we get to meet who are offering resources to the community, perspective, and also just reminding us of how smart and accomplished we really are. One such person is with me this morning. She is the diversity dean at Pepperdine Caruso School of Law, and she's also part of the State Bar of California Council on Access and Fairness. We're talking about the barriers, the downsides, the solutions, but I also want to talk about why we need black lawyers. Why do we need more people of color to be in this system of justice?
Yeah, thank you so much again for having me this morning, Dominique. One of those is what we were talking about Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson and the importance of that voice being at the table. And if we look at the arguments that she had in that October hearing on the hearing that they had at the court on affirmative action, and the questions she was able to ask and the way she was able to trace the history and the impact of racism and systemic racism, not just the individual things people do, but as Dr. Beverly Daniel Tatum calls it, the fog that just sort of exists in the air that we're living in on Black people, but not just on Black people. And I think that's what we forget sometimes when people hear diversity. They think, oh, that's for those people over there, and forget that, no, having the perspective of Black people, having the perspective of us in the room actually lifts the tide for everyone else and raises the standard for everyone else's experience.
Yeah, I mean, we the data show that, right? When white people or people who identify as white or anyone, Asian people, anyone, goes to a institution of higher learning or even elementary and high school that has a diverse population, they are better prepared when they graduate.
Yeah, it's what we call the business case for diversity, that companies that are more diverse are more successful because they have people in the room bringing different backgrounds, different values, different thought processes. Think about someone who grows up, say, in the area where we are, Crenshaw and Leimert, and is driving around streets that have a ton of potholes, and they know the impact of those potholes on all their cars versus someone who maybe is growing up in Malibu, where Pepperdine's located, and the roads are a little better. They're both on a council together. They're both in, the state leadership together. One's going to be thinking about investing in roads in a way that another person isn't. It doesn't mean either one is bad, right? It means that one is bringing an experience that then makes it better for everybody else there. And I think that's what Black people bring to the table.
I mean, I think about corporate scandals, Gucci with their minstrel show sweater, which probably cost them a lot of money because now you've got to go and do an apology tour and clean it up and sort of trash those whatever $5,000 sweaters or sell them somewhere else. That if had someone been in the room with a different life experience, they would have said, really, is that what we're doing? Perhaps that could have saved them all that money, right?
Yeah, and I think it's not just had someone been in the room, but if someone was in the room that they would listen to.
Right. Someone in the room with clout.
Yes.
That's the fine print. And I feel like the attorneys that I know, of which there are many, who are African American, also, they take the creativity and the charisma and the innovativeness that we bring to everything, and they apply it to the way they practice law.
They absolutely do. And if I can brag for a second, I think one of the ways we're doing that at the law school is my baby that's becoming a toddler, which is called the Belonging Awards. And I created an awards gala specifically to celebrate the people in our community who we are not normally celebrating or uplifting as regularly. And one such is someone that we all know well, you know well. Her name is Capri Maddox, and she's receiving one of our awards next Friday. And of course, we know
Congrats, Capri Maddox. Yes.
And what the award she's receiving is our Larry D. Kimmons Social Justice Award, named for, as we have too many, an unarmed Black teenager, young Black man who was killed in the 1960s here in LA. And he was killed, and we created an award in his name to say that we are recognizing people who fight every day across industry to make sure that that does not happen again.
You mentioned in passing the Langston Bar Association. Explain what that is.
So in almost every area, you have a bar association, which, just for those who don't know, bar associations are just groups of lawyers. It's our clubs. It's what we call them. The bar is where you're licensed, and so the Association of Lawyers. And this one is for Black attorneys or allies, but predominantly African American or Black attorneys in the Los Angeles area. And so Langston Bar is that collective of people who join, who are licensed attorneys, again, or allies, who want to encourage, uplift, create community for Black people and Black attorneys.
And I'm glad you explained that, too, because I remember in interviewing all of these attorneys who were seeking to become judges in the last election. And we talked a lot about barriers to attorneys, Black attorneys, many of whom come from being, public defenders or a defense attorney, as social justice advocates, civil rights attorneys, getting on the bench and how important that would be. And not just Black people, also just people who come from that public defender or civil rights perspective from many different communities. And one of the things they said was that bar associations will rate who would make a good judge and who wouldn't make a good judge, but there's no checks and balances on what their system of metrics is, what their criteria are, and so many times it's the people that have already been judges or the people that are connected with the lawyers in that group that will receive higher ratings.
And that's exactly right, and it goes back to that system that we were talking about that people don't realize is insidious and wrong, right? We think about, oh, I know this person, I really like them, I'm going to rate them higher. I don't know that person. They may or may not be as intelligent as I think they're going to be. We don't often think about how that's connected to their race, but I think often it is. And so we rate them lower. And absolutely that exists. And one of the ways to overcome that would be to put in place generally the metrics that would be needed. But then we'd need another governing body that's keeping all of that in check. And that's what I think some people kind of buck up against is, okay, well, then who's enforcing those metrics?
Well, then there's another option, which is don't let those folks give ratings to attorneys and say this one is qualified and this one isn't, because myself, as an uninformed consumer who's voting, oh, well, this bar association said no, this person is not qualified. And I'm thinking a bar association has some official, capacity when really it's just a bunch of lawyers who decided they don't like that lawyer.
Yeah, that would also be there. And if you think about it, or reframing it just as endorsements, right? So
Yeah.
in politics, then the consumer is aware, oh, that's just an endorsement, which can mean a lot of things rather than a rating. So that way the bars still have their voice. They can still say, hey, we know this person, we know them to be ethical, we had a bad experience with them, and whatever that may be. But now we've reframed it for someone like you who's going in and voting and is saying, well, how do I know if this person's capable? Well, this is an endorsement, not just a rating saying their actual ability.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I asked you before News, Traffic, and Sports to give me an example of how a question could be on a bar exam, how it could be biased.
Yeah, so the easiest example or the quickest example that comes to mind is actually related to gender. And so thinking about if there's a question on the bar exam that references or should be bringing to mind for the person, the examinee, domestic violence, do we always frame it where the female gender or the woman or even the transgender person, maybe if we have some identifier there, is the victim? Because what that does, we've seen confirmation bias and stereotype bias that says if I'm a woman taking an exam where all the questions I read referencing women are victims, then I'm going to implicitly believe that I'm less able to succeed on that exam. We've also seen it where there were sometimes explicit, where there was a question on criminal law and there was an explanation given of one person's race and not the other. And oftentimes where race is mentioned, it's for someone in the negative. We assume the positive race is white and that the other is not. And so we went through and said, oh, this can imply, because they're saying it's a darker night and the person blended in, that might be triggering race.
Gee, I wonder who that
and
could
we
be.
should remove that, right? And it feels very obvious to you when you're sort of reading it and going, why would you write that? But for people who don't know or sometimes have malintent, but not always. Sometimes they truly don't know, being able to point that out and then give guidance on the training that they should receive so that is not there. Maybe what you meant by blended in was they wore all black clothing and a mask over their face. Well, then say that.
Right.
Rather than just they blended in, which
Right.
for us is saying, oh, they must be black.
Right, it reminds us of some of those mama jokes.
Exactly.
That is probably not in the writer's repertoire. We're talking with Pepperdine Caruso School of Law Diversity Dean, Chalak Richards. And, you're welcome to call if you have a question, but I have plenty. If you don't, 800-920-1580. This is KBLA Talk 1580, where we're amplifying black and progressive voices around the clock.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
Freedmen's Bureau type agency will be essential in delivering reparations. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by Lendistry. The members of the California Task Force to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans are preparing the pretext for recommending a modern-day Freedmen's Bureau that will be critical for compensating descendants of enslaved black people for the injustices of slavery and Jim Crow discrimination they suffered. It will serve as a main office or headquarters with specialized offices and branches dedicated to addressing specific atrocities that have snowballed over generations.
Thanks to our new sponsor, Lendistry. Lendistry is a national black-led small business lender that is headquartered in Los Angeles. Lendistry helps small business owners access the affordable capital needed to grow. Visit Lendistry, LENDISTRY.com/KBLA today. Thanks to our new sponsor, Lendistry. Lendistry is a national black-led small business lender that is headquartered in Los Angeles. Lendistry helps small business owners access the affordable capital needed to grow. Visit Lendistry, LENDISTRY.com/KBLA today.
If you feel sick, test to know if it's COVID. Treat it. Medication is key to slow the virus in your body. Beat it. Recover smoother. You may test negative sooner. California, you know you need it. Test it, treat it, you can beat it.
Yeah. Visit youcanbeatit.org or call 833-422-4255 to ask for medication to treat COVID-19. Sponsored by the California Department of Public Health.
KBLA Talk 1580 is teaming up with LA County Justice Care and Opportunity Department, along with Supervisor Holly Mitchell, to bring you a healing space, well-being, creative expression, and connection as acts of resistance. This event will take place Sunday, February 19th from 12 to 4 p.m. at Irvin Magic Johnson Park, 905 East El Segundo Boulevard in Los Angeles. All are welcome, and it's absolutely free.
There will be mental health support, interactive art, an expungement clinic, kids programming, emotional support animal services, writing workshops, health screenings, dance classes, and employment opportunities. Join us for healing circles, free food, and 3 DJs so you can dance all day long.
It's a healing space and so much more. Sunday, February 19th at Irvin Magic Johnson Park. For more info, visit jcod.lacounty.gov. Healing together with the LA County Justice Care and Opportunities Department, Supervisor Holly Mitchell, and KBLA Talk 1580.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Dean Chalak Richards, Pepperdine Caruso School of Law. She's the Dean of Students Diversity and Belonging. And I put out the call, and Florence has answered the call. Florence from LA, good morning.
Good morning, and happy Wednesday. It's always a pleasure to join the show and have questions that I hope will help advance equity. I had a particular question, and I know this is an issue that's occurring throughout the city as people become more active in demanding equity. I'm just wondering if you have an issue within an organization, and normally many organizations have compliance officers or equity officers. I'm wondering, is it kosher that the general counsel is serving as the equity officer? Because that seems like such a conflict of interest.
So you're saying within any organization, is it a conflict?
Within any organization.
Is it a conflict of
Yes.
interest for general counsel who has to defend that institution from even possibly charges of, racism or lack of equity for them to also be the equity officer? It's a very oddly specific but interesting question. Dean Richards, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And good morning, Florence. Good to hear you. And I absolutely agree with you. Advancing equity, moving that forward is important. You know, historically, you've seen either HR, the human resources, or general counsel's offices serving in those positions. It's very recent, probably in the last 10 to 15 years, that you see the creation of separate DEI or equity officers precisely because of the type of conflict that you identify. So I wouldn't say blanket statement that it's always wrong or always a conflict for them to serve in that position. What does become troubling or hard is if the person is bringing what could be a legal claim and then they're not excusing themselves or bringing in outside counsel, which is often when they get to the point where they realize, oh, this could now translate into a legal claim against the organization or the company. We need someone else to come in as a third party and evaluate that. And that's something that someone like me has done, or you have other consultants who come in and provide that perspective. But historically, yes, HR and general counsels have served in those positions. And what you can do is advocate for your company to create a separate DEI role, which, again, many have seen as a solution to this in the past 10 to 15 years. So relatively new for industry.
Interesting question, Florence. I appreciate that. I didn't realize that that was part of the HR and general counsel portfolio, although it does make sense because people will consult on that. We have seen a rise of more diversity, equity, inclusion officers in many different companies, not just in schools. But there's also, it seems like there's a wave of folks that are kind of stepped into those roles and then stepped out because they didn't feel they had the tools, the clout, the money to really make an impact.
Yeah, and you know, something that's even more troubling, we've seen some articles that have come out over the past 3-ish weeks, some notably from Bloomberg, but some other places, also talking about the defunding of those offices. Right. And so as we head into economically troubling times where companies kind of tighten their belt, one of the first things that we've seen to go are the DEI offices. And we've also seen people step away exactly as you said, because they've said, I'm not going to be performative. I'm not just going to be here to make you look good and not actually be able to accomplish the things that are important to move this forward. I have colleagues who have done that, and I admire them for taking that stance, because it is important to be able to say when you see that someone is not actually behind what they say they're behind, that we need to move over and have a principled stance about that.
When we come forward, we're going to talk about what you may be wondering, how you can access some of these programs that are put in place to knock down the obstacles to having more Black lawyers, more BIPOC lawyers, more opportunities for those who want to be part of the law. It's KBLA, Talk 1580.
We may be LA's newest talk station, but when you're punching above your weight, it's not about whether you can throw a punch. Can you take a punch? We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. And we don't black down. KBLA Talk 1580 would like to thank all of the businesses that tune in to KBLA at work. We celebrate you, your calls to the station, and your overall support. To show our appreciation, we would like to treat your office to lunch for 10, sponsored by John O'Groats family-owned restaurant and johnogroats.us. Open the KBLA Talk 1580 app or log on to KBLA1580.com to submit your office to be selected for our Office of the Week. We know you're just like our staff, putting in many hard, smart working hours per week. We just want to say thank you, and we appreciate you. You and your staff deserve lunch on us. Enter your office to win lunch for 10 and be highlighted on KBLA Talk 1580 as our Office of the Week. Open the KBLA app or log on to KBLA1580.com to enter your office today to become the KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week. Sponsored by John O'Groats family-owned restaurant and johnogroats.us. Become the KBLA Talk 1580 Office of the Week. This has been a KBLA Talk 1580 community call to action.
KBLA Talk 1580 is growing at a phenomenal pace, and we need to enlarge our territory. We are seeking smart, creative solution providers to join the KBLA delegation and go higher with us. If you or someone you know is interested in joining our team as a brand manager, go to our website at KBLA1580.com. Tap on employment opportunities and let us hear from you. We're not looking for everybody or just anybody, but you could be that special somebody. Come grow with us. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, could potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
Celebrating and making Black history every day. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We got a lot to talk about every day, and I'm so glad you're here with us. I'm Dominique DiPrima. This is First Things First, and I'm speaking with Dean Chalak Richards. She's over students, diversity, and belonging. So we've talked about obstacles to getting into law school, becoming an attorney for Black people, for people of color. Talk to me about what solutions you have going on.
Yeah, solutions I think are the most important part. So we're not bogged down in the problems, right? But we know we can lift out of them. One, getting people into law school. I'm so proud of our HBCU initiative that gives a guaranteed 50% tuition scholarship to every incoming student who graduated from a historically Black college or university. And gives up to 5 of those students full tuition scholarships for their demonstrated leadership, their commitment to the community, particularly the Black community, and to advancing diversity. We also have our Belonging Awards happening next Friday that celebrates people, not just tolerates, but we celebrate, we uplift, we move people forward. One of those being LA's own Capri Maddox receiving our Social Justice Award, but we give alumni awards, student organizations, individual students receive up to $1,000 because again, if you give them the money, you show that you really value them.
And how would we access the scholarships and find out about the awards?
Yeah, so the awards are available online. My marketing's going to be mad that I don't have the exact URL, but if you Google Pepperdine Law Belonging Awards, you can still access, you can stream them virtually, and we have limited in-person tickets remaining, but you can stream it online and experience that wonderful time. You can also view our past award ceremonies there. The scholarships, literally every student who graduated from an HBCU who comes receives that, but you can donate towards those scholarships or towards other things that we're doing at the law school for diversity and belonging by just going to law.pepperdine.edu/diversity, and there is a give button, and that also has more information about things like our Race and the Law series, our Reimagining Justice series, where we have videos and we have conversations about what justice could look like in an area, not just what it is now, but how we could reframe and we could reposition any area of society to be more just.
Wow. And so those are resources.
Absolutely.
That are free and available.
Free and available to the entire community. Anybody who wants to go, law.pepperdine.edu/diversity, and all of those resources are there.
Well, I really appreciate you coming in, appreciate you coming live and in person, and the support of the Pepperdine Caruso School of Law of KBLA, our mutual support here. We've got about a minute.
Can I say thank you to you, Dominique, and to KBLA for your voices? It is so important, and it is a resource and an opportunity that I want to make sure our school and our students are taking part of. And so I have to say thank you. You are a co-sponsor of our Belonging Awards, recognizing that we need to celebrate people in the profession, and we really appreciate all that you're doing. I appreciate your voice and what you bring to the community.
Thank you. Means a lot, really does. And I just want to say, we got about 30 seconds. What do you want to say to people who are thinking about where to go to law school?
Well, I have to give the plug that if you want to go to law school, come to Pepperdine. But I want to say more that if you are particularly a young Black person and you think you might want to do the law at all, contact me. I am here to be a resource, a mentor to any Black person who is interested in being a lawyer anywhere ever. My email address is found on that website, law.pepperdine.edu/diversity, and I mean it. I want to answer your phone calls,
KBLA
take you to
50.
lunch.
That was an accident.
Okay, and take you to lunch and make sure that you can be a lawyer.
Dean Richards thought she was getting the Apollo Theater treatment. That was just a mistake. Well, I appreciate you joining us, and you got the invitation. Let's take advantage. Thank you so much. We have your phone calls and a Wealth Building Wednesday coming up on KBLA Talk 1580.
1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The death toll from last week's earthquake in Turkey and Syria is now over 41,000. More than 35,000 of those